Hello! The story you are about to hear may seem like it's straight out of an action movie, but it is entirely true. It tells the tale of an undercover agent from the Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) who succumbed to the temptations of money. As an undercover agent, he built and ran a drug empire for over 7 years, raking in tens of millions of dollars. With his skills, he made it incredibly difficult for U.S. law enforcement to capture him. They even had to call upon Interpol for assistance in chasing him down. His life was filled with unbelievable stories, so much so that even crime novels wouldn't dare imagine such tales. The story revolves around the thrilling life of a drug lord who was once an undercover agent. In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan launched a decisive campaign to combat the widespread drug epidemic across the U.S. The main goal of this campaign was to cut off the drug trafficking routes from South America through the Caribbean. However, drug cartels quickly adapted to the new situation. When faced with intense crackdowns in the eastern region, they shifted direction, establishing new routes through Mexico into California. The city of Los Angeles, known as the City of Angels, suddenly became the epicenter of the cocaine storm. The Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, faced an unprecedented challenge. Each year, they carried out approximately 100,000 arrests, with 18,000 to 20,000 directly related to drugs. Notably, throughout the 1980s, the LAPD seized record amounts of cash and drugs in these arrests. However, the wave of drug crime soon overwhelmed local law enforcement, forcing the DEA to intervene. Among the pioneers of this battle, Agent Darnell Garcia stood out with his extensive experience. Before joining the DEA in 1978, Garcia had honed his skills through years of service with the Los Angeles Police Department. Alongside Garcia was Victor Guerrero, his close friend and colleague in the fight against drugs. Guerrero continued to work undercover for the FBI, and his identity was kept strictly confidential to ensure his safety during dangerous missions. Garcia, Williams, and Hartford were three brave agents, united by their friendship and shared mission. Each day they faced danger, plunging into what seemed like an impossible war to stop drugs from flooding the streets. Among them, Garcia stood out for his extraordinary courage. He was not only familiar with the city streets, but also possessed sharp instincts, always accurately assessing situations and acting swiftly and effectively. Terry Bowers, a former assistant U.S. attorney, recalled his time working with Garcia with admiration. As an undercover agent, Garcia had a unique ability to blend in and operate efficiently in the criminal underworld. Bowers remarked that not only did Garcia excel in his missions, but he also created the image of a tough, decisive man. Garcia's persona wasn't just a reality, but also carried a bit of legend within the law enforcement community. Darnell Garcia, originally from New York, moved to Los Angeles with his family and grew up there. After graduating from high school, Garcia joined the military and served for 3 years during the Vietnam War. Upon returning from the war, he pursued higher education at the University of Los Angeles, while also developing a strong passion for martial arts. Under the guidance of Chuck Norris, a movie star and martial arts champion, Garcia trained relentlessly. His persistence and talent propelled him to the top, and Garcia won the international championship in Long Beach. Following in his mentor's footsteps, Garcia ventured into acting, appearing in several films, including a role in Bruce Lee's legendary work Way of the Dragon. His competitive spirit and desire to succeed made Garcia a rising star in the martial arts world. However, in a city full of contradictions like Los Angeles, where extreme wealth coexisted with extreme poverty, law enforcement officers like Garcia constantly faced the temptations of large sums of money. This was an ethical challenge they had to struggle with, especially when they had families to take care of. Garcia began craving a lavish lifestyle that his DEA salary couldn't provide. Before him was an enticing shortcut to the life he dreamed of, and that temptation became too strong for him to resist. Unable to resist, Garcia decided to step onto the dark path despite the cost of his integrity. At first, he merely took cash from confiscations, justifying it to himself as a deserved reward for the risks and dangers he faced every day. Garcia told himself, "I'm risking my life every day to protect the community," earning a paltry salary and getting harassed. Taking a little money from the drug dealers doesn't hurt anyone. But Garcia didn't stop there. He dragged his two close colleagues, Ed Williams and Brian Hartford, into the spiral of crime. The three agents quickly realized that stealing drugs was as easy as taking money. Darnell Garcia had become the embodiment of law enforcement's worst nightmare. The reality is, when undercover agents operate too long without a strong moral compass, the line between right and wrong can gradually blur, especially in the 1980s when drug trafficking could bring in millions of dollars. The temptation became nearly irresistible. Corruption spread throughout the police force, and Garcia and his accomplices became part of it. They operated right within the DEA without being detected. Garcia had lost all respect for the agency he was serving. He saw the flaws in the management system and didn't hesitate to exploit them to carry out his schemes. With every successful theft, Garcia became more daring. The peak came in January 1983 when Garcia and his accomplices stole nearly 0.5 kilogram of cocaine from a DEA seizure. To cover up their crime, they used the experience they had accumulated over the years of chasing drug traffickers. Acting like double agents straddling two worlds, justice and crime. Garcia had learned and applied the very tricks he had witnessed while working as an undercover agent. Mimicking the techniques of drug dealers, he mixed cocaine with baking soda to increase its volume. After taking the majority of the cocaine from the evidence bag, Garcia replaced it with baking soda, but left behind a small amount of cocaine. When the DEA checked, they still found traces of cocaine and had no suspicion of his fraudulent behavior. This was the result of applying the sophisticated techniques he had observed during his time as an undercover agent. Garcia's plan operated perfectly, and the DEA officials didn't notice any changes in the evidence bags. In the first 2 years, Garcia carried out 10 drug thefts with a total value of nearly $300,000. He skillfully used his insider knowledge of investigation procedures to maintain a steady supply of drugs. Garcia monitored suspects, identified drug stash locations, and acted before the DEA made their arrests. The plan was simple but incredibly effective. He was confident that both the drug dealers and himself would remain silent. As a result, no reports were filed and no one suspected a thing. Garcia expertly played both sides, hiding behind his DEA badge to avoid retaliation from drug traffickers. John Moff, the former head of Interpol in the U.S., who led a drug enforcement team for the FBI in the 1980s, commented, "Drug dealers are always ready to protect their assets with heavy weapons. However, they're also smart enough not to act recklessly and attack the police." Garcia seemed to be untouchable. Over time, Hartford, Williams, and Garcia expanded their operations, building their own drug empire. From stealing money, they transitioned to controlling the supply of cocaine. With a ready market, Garcia only needed the right people to distribute the drugs, and he knew exactly where to find them through informants from previous investigations. Those who once provided him with information had now become tools to sell drugs on the streets. This was a huge irony in drug enforcement, where investigators were in constant contact with criminals. The biggest challenge for law enforcement officers is to avoid being drawn into the criminal world themselves. But the line between an officer and a criminal can sometimes be astonishingly thin. With the experience of working alongside drug dealers throughout his career, Garcia and his accomplices easily set up a distribution network that could rival any gang in the city. Their business grew rapidly beyond expectations, and Garcia and his partners amassed millions in profits. However, this massive amount of money, initially their goal, soon became a significant problem. They had no way to legitimize the funds. The government had introduced strict regulations on depositing money in banks, and depositing too much would attract unwanted attention. As a result, Garcia and his partners had to handle large amounts of cash, which became incredibly troublesome and dangerous. Facing the challenge of storing their illicit fortune, Garcia involved his girlfriend, Wendy Bedford, a legal secretary in a money laundering scheme. Bedford cleverly bought cashier's checks worth $9,900. A carefully chosen figure to avoid the $10,000 reporting threshold required by law. Once they accumulated enough checks, Garcia sought a safe place to stash the enormous amount of money, and he found the ideal destination, Switzerland. In 1983, Garcia and his two accomplices traveled to Zurich, the haven of discreet and powerful banking. There each opened a secret bank account. In their first deposit, Garcia transferred a total of 12 cashiers, checks worth $100,000. It was an impressive figure, but it was only the beginning of their criminal empire. At the DEA office in Los Angeles, Garcia continued to exploit his position to cover up his increasingly bold drug-dealing activities. By 1984, he began stealing large quantities of drugs from the DEA storage, taking 1 kilogram at a time, as believing the agency wouldn't notice the losses. Victor Guerrero, Garcia's friend and an undercover FBI agent, revealed that Garcia had such disdain for the DEA that he openly criticized the agency for its shortcomings, from its lack of resources to its inefficiency. In 1985, the DEA decided to transfer Garcia from Los Angeles to Detroit, but he firmly refused, resulting in his dismissal. A colleague remarked that Garcia was never an outstanding agent and had always been dissatisfied since the start of his career with the DEA. However, Garcia didn't back down. He retaliated by filing a lawsuit against the DEA for discrimination. Surprisingly, Garcia won the case, forcing the DEA to reinstate him, a victory that only boosted his recklessness. In October 1984, a serious incident occurred when 1 kilogram of heroin was reported missing from the DEA's evidence storage. Initially, suspicion fell on the evidence supervisor, but he denied any involvement. Upon reviewing the registration logs, multiple agents, including Garcia, had access to the storage. The DEA launched an internal investigation and requested that the suspects take polygraph tests. However, Garcia cleverly refused, avoiding a test he would surely fail. Exploiting the rule that employees couldn't be forced to take polygraph tests, Garcia escaped the tough situation and continued to challenge the investigators. By 1985, after the investigation yielded no clear results, the DEA expanded its scope to include Brian Harford and Garcia. Yet Garcia remained unfazed, his greed deeply rooted in his mind, making him believe that the DEA would never uncover his illegal activities. This overconfidence made Garcia bolder by the day. He and his accomplices secretly surveilled drug dealers' safe houses, and by November 1985, they were ready to strike. Their target was one of the biggest dealers in Los Angeles. During the raid, Garcia discovered a massive stash of 182 kilograms of cocaine valued at an estimated $18 million, one of the largest drug seizures in Los Angeles history. However, no press conference was held, and no photos were taken with the mayor. In reality, Garcia never reported this seizure at all, and the DEA had no knowledge of the event. Garcia took all the cocaine to supply his own distribution network. To conceal the millions of dollars in illegal profits, Garcia and his accomplices transferred the money directly into secret European bank accounts, using cash deposits to avoid detection. While Garcia and his partners were reveling in their sense of invincibility, an unexpected turn of events occurred in 1986. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department arrested 2 notorious drug dealers, and under the pressure of interrogation, they revealed a shocking piece of information. One of their drug suppliers was Brian Harford, a DEA agent operating in Los Angeles. The investigation quickly expanded, exposing the close relationship between Harford, Garcia, and Williams. The DEA began closely monitoring the 3 men, but had to proceed with extreme caution, as internal investigations are always delicate, especially when the subjects are well-versed in every tactic and could be on guard. Gradually, pieces of the puzzle started to come together. Harford was frequently visiting Garcia's apartment near the DEA headquarters. The apartment staff revealed that Garcia always paid his rent in cash, an unusual sign. The deeper the investigation went, the more mysterious Garcia became. The apartment seemed to be just one link in his complicated life. Another suspicious clue was Garcia's sudden and inexplicable wealth, which further heightened investigators' doubts about his shady activities. In 1987, Garcia built a mansion in Rancho Palos Verdes, an upscale suburb in Southern California. With a DEA salary of around $40,000 to $50,000 per year in the early 1980s. How could Garcia afford a $500,000 house? When a friend warned him about the attention he was attracting, Garcia skillfully explained that he had inherited a large sum of money and borrowed the rest. However, the investigators did not relent and expanded the investigation to include those close to Garcia, hoping to trace evidence of his money laundering operations. Investigators discovered that Garcia led a double life with both a wife and a mistress, but it was unclear whether these women were aware of his illegal activities. Despite being closely monitored, Garcia didn't reveal any signs of criminal behavior. Detectives never saw him meeting with any drug dealers, they only had suspicions, with no concrete evidence linking Garcia to any criminal activity. However, an anomaly appeared when they checked Garcia's phone records. He frequently made calls to a number in New York, which caught the DEA's attention. The DEA contacted the New York Police Department for further investigation. The mysterious number belonged to Howard Calhoun, a former DEA informant who had since become a notorious drug dealer. When interrogated, Calhoun denied any connection to Garcia, Harford, or Williams, but the investigators weren't easily fooled. A search of Calhoun's apartment led to a significant breakthrough. They found letters and notes containing Garcia's initials and phone number. This was undeniable evidence. Finally, Calhoun and his girlfriend confessed that Garcia and his accomplices had been sending drugs via courier to Coloni's apartment from an address in Los Angeles, which turned out to be Garcia and Brian Harford's address. Calhoun revealed that Garcia and his associates sent drugs for him to sell, and he then sent the profits back to California using the same method. This drug trafficking system, though simple, was remarkably effective and provided the DEA with crucial evidence. The courier service receipts became the key to arresting the group of rogue agents. To prevent Garcia and his accomplices from warning each other, the DEA planned to arrest all three at the same time. After 3 years of intense investigation, November 22, 1988 was selected as the day of action. Task forces were ready to end one of the most complex internal corruption cases in DEA history. The day of action arrived. Brian Harford and Ed Williams were arrested smoothly without resistance. However, when authorities surrounded Garcia's home, they found only pictures of his lavish lifestyle. Garcia, the DEA agent turned drug kingpin, had seemingly vanished into thin air just hours before his arrest. Garcia's mysterious disappearance raised a big question. How did he know about the impending arrest? The answer quickly emerged when investigators discovered that another girlfriend of Garcia's worked at the Los Angeles County Courthouse. She admitted to seeing the arrest warrant and warning Garcia, though she didn't know where he had fled. The failure to apprehend Garcia was a huge disappointment for investigators, but they didn't give up. In the following months, a federal grand jury in Los Angeles issued 3 additional indictments. Los Angeles County charged Garcia with 26 serious counts, including conspiracy to possess and distribute drugs, as well as numerous money laundering and tax evasion violations. The hunt for Garcia became a test of patience and investigative skill. Authorities believed it was only a matter of time before Garcia made a mistake and revealed himself. The DEA relentlessly investigated Garcia's past, combed through every page of his personnel records, and thoroughly scrutinized his network of relationships. They increased pressure on anyone who might know Garcia's whereabouts, but every lead seemed to hit a dead end. Unexpectedly, 2 months after Garcia's disappearance, a glimmer of hope surfaced when police received a tip about Garcia's appearance at a club in North Hollywood. Not wanting to miss the opportunity, federal and local law enforcement quickly launched a large-scale operation on the ground and in the air. They were determined not to let Garcia escape again, though the likelihood of Garcia still being in Los Angeles was slim. But with someone as cunning and arrogant as Garcia, anything was possible. However, for the second time, in 2 months, authorities came up empty-handed. They still hadn't captured Garcia, nor could they understand his motives. It seemed as though Garcia was taunting the DEA, believing himself to be smarter and capable of staying hidden forever. By June 1989, Garcia was still completely off the radar, and the DEA continued to track his wife Anita and their 12-year-old child, but they too had vanished without a trace. With Garcia's family gone, the DEA suspected that he had severed all ties with the U.S. and was trying to disappear permanently. In the age of globalization, it was entirely possible to move quickly and easily to anywhere in the world, as long as one had enough money. Realizing the importance of time, investigators focused on tracking down and seizing Garcia's assets to prevent him from fleeing further. Upon closely reviewing his financial records, the DEA uncovered something suspicious. Garcia claimed to have borrowed money from an Italian businessman to purchase his new luxury home. However, the investigation quickly proved this loan was fabricated, a clever trick by Garcia to cover up using drug money to buy real estate. The in-depth investigation revealed the source of Garcia's mysterious finances, a $420,000 wire transfer from a Swiss bank in May 1987. The DEA immediately requested access to Garcia's Swiss accounts from the Swiss authorities, but when the agencies pinpointed the bank, Garcia had already been one step ahead. The account had been closed. Undeterred, the DEA continued to dig deeper into Garcia's financial maze. Their persistence paid off when they discovered the existence of a second account in Luxembourg. This could be a crucial lead in locating Garcia. With renewed hope, the DEA decided to expand their search and enlisted the help of Interpol. Interpol's global network is a powerful tool in tracking down international criminals. When an Interpol notice is issued, it spreads to all member countries. This system allows wanted individuals' information to be compared with data from multiple sources: hotels, borders, financial transactions. Every little move Garcia made could become a vital clue leading to his arrest. The hunt for Garcia had now become an international effort, with thousands of eyes watching for any trace of this former DEA agent turned fugitive. Luxembourg, a small country nestled between France and Germany, may be modest in size, but holds significant economic power. Its strategic location and reputation as a financial haven made Luxembourg a hub for international criminals. The DEA quickly contacted Pierre Conan, an Interpol agent in Luxembourg, and asked him to track down Garcia, a highly dangerous individual. This mission was particularly challenging because Garcia wasn't a typical criminal, but a former, well-trained agent familiar with counterintelligence tactics and skilled at evading detection. Conan began his investigation at the bank where Garcia had conducted transactions, but once again, they were one step too late. Garcia had closed the account and withdrawn $3 million in cash. For the bank manager, this transaction was unforgettable. Garcia stuffed the money into a plastic bag, over $3 million, and asked, "Would you mind stepping outside with me? I'll show you my ride." The bank manager guessed it would surely be a luxury sports car, but surprisingly, there was no Ferrari, just a bicycle. The bank manager also noticed a rental sticker from a local hotel, a key clue that could help Conan track down Garcia, the former DEA agent who had now become a drug kingpin. Garcia appeared in Luxembourg in June 1989 and quickly disappeared with $3 million. Interpol believed that if Garcia was still in Luxembourg, this would be a rare opportunity to catch him. Despite being smart and cunning, but Garcia was still a foreigner in an unfamiliar land, which made him easier to identify compared to being in California. The last clue about Garcia was the image of him cycling with a plastic bag containing $3 million. The Interpol agents immediately followed this lead to a nearby hotel, where the staff easily recognized Garcia as a familiar guest. Conan continued the investigation and discovered that Garcia had made several phone calls from his hotel room to a local travel agency. At the agency, a young employee clearly remembered Garcia, who had given her a lot of work. They determined that Garcia had flown from Luxembourg to Paris multiple times, but tracking him further proved difficult. However, they hoped he would resurface soon. Conan shifted his focus to tracking Garcia's money, guessing that the $3 million in cash might still be in Luxembourg. Logic suggested that after withdrawing such a large sum, Garcia may have deposited it into another account at a different bank. However, surveys of the local banks yielded no results. So, where had Garcia moved the money? In Los Angeles, investigators developed a new theory. When hunting a fugitive, learning about their interests and passions could provide valuable clues. They recalled Garcia's particular passion for Grand Prix racing. However, searching for one man among thousands of spectators at the Grand Prix in France in July seemed like an impossible task. This event attracted large crowds, creating the perfect environment for Garcia to blend in and disappear. The hunt for Garcia had now turned into a complex chess game, where every move could lead to a breakthrough or failure. The DEA and Interpol persisted, scouring hotel records and nationwide booking lists, all in an effort to track down Garcia. And then a glimmer of hope appeared in Paris. On July 3rd, 1989, just days before the Grand Prix race, French police working with the DEA and Interpol discovered that Garcia's wife and son had checked into a hotel in Paris. They suspected Garcia might be in France for the race and quickly dispatched agents to monitor his wife, hoping Garcia would show up. However, while agents focused on Paris, Garcia made a foolish mistake less than 200 miles away. In Luxembourg, Garcia visited a travel agency to exchange an unused plane ticket worth about $200. Incredibly, a man on the run with millions of dollars was recklessly putting himself in danger for such a small sum. The female travel agent realized the opportunity and skillfully stepped outside to call Conan, informing him that Garcia was preparing to leave and urgently asking the police to act fast. Sensing the urgency, Conan instructed the agent to delay Garcia by any means necessary. In a tense atmosphere, Conan and his team quickly grabbed their weapons, jumped into the car, and began a race against time. Every second counted and could determine the outcome of this months-long manhunt. After more than 7 months on the run, Garcia had finally resurfaced, and Interpol agent Conan was facing a once-in-a-lifetime chance to apprehend this dangerous criminal. The situation was extremely tense, as even the slightest mistake could turn the innocent travel agent into a hostage or worse. With only 2 of them facing a former DEA agent turned drug kingpin, Conan couldn't help but feel anxious, but his determination remained strong. They approached Garcia, drawing their guns simultaneously. The first thing Garcia saw were 2.357 Magnum guns pointed straight at his head. Conan later remarked on the irony that Garcia was caught because of $200. Such a small sum compared to the millions he had made from drug trafficking. However, the arrest was just the first step. The next challenge was extraditing Garcia to the U.S. The DEA sought the help of Mary Jo Gron, a criminal extradition expert from Europe with the Department of Justice. Grin discovered a major obstacle. The extradition treaty with Luxembourg was outdated and lacked provisions for temporary detention. Undeterred, Grin negotiated with Luxembourg authorities, and luckily, they found a local law allowing them to hold Garcia for 30 days if the U.S. provided enough evidence. This was a slim but crucial chance. To ensure Garcia's extradition, U.S. prosecutors had to present all 26 of his charges before a Luxembourg court. However, they faced a tough problem. They still hadn't located the money Garcia was accused of laundering. Without concrete evidence, after 30 days, Luxembourg would be forced to release Garcia, no matter how serious his crimes were. The clock started ticking, and investigators had to race against time to solidify the case or risk Garcia slipping through the cracks of the law once more. While U.S. officials worked to secure the extradition, Conan continued to monitor Garcia in prison, hoping he would make a mistake and reveal a clue about the missing money. The situation became more complicated when both Garcia's wife and his girlfriend took turns visiting him. His wife in the morning, his girlfriend in the afternoon. It was clear that both women loved Garcia, or at least loved his $3 million. Conan decided to exploit this situation, setting up surveillance on both women, hoping one of them would lead them to the hidden money. However, the surveillance yielded nothing, and neither woman acted suspiciously. Conan began to suspect that Garcia's wife had been trained to recognize surveillance, making the task extremely difficult. Determined to find the money, Conan and his team shifted their focus to analyzing the documents Garcia had left in 2 suitcases. They uncovered an important clue, a hidden number in his notes. This number led them to a bank in Luxembourg. Although there was no active account under Garcia's name, but they discovered a closed account with nearly $3 million under one of his aliases. The bank manager recalled that Garcia's wife had visited a few days after his arrest, carrying a power of attorney to withdraw all the money. Police quickly sent out alerts to all banks in Luxembourg, instructing them to watch for any accounts opened or closed during the time Garcia was arrested. This effort finally paid off. They discovered that both Garcia's wife and his girlfriend had opened multiple accounts under different names to spread out the $3 million. Finally, the DEA had enough evidence to extradite Garcia to the U.S. and hold him for a long time. The case quickly expanded as Garcia's wife, Anita, and his girlfriend were both arrested, and all bank accounts connected to them were seized. The Luxembourg police held Garcia for 6 months on charges of using a false passport, while the DEA and the U.S. Department of Justice prepared extradition papers based on 6 drug-related charges in Los Angeles. Garcia's accomplices, Brian Harford and Williams, had already pleaded guilty to drug trafficking. Harford was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while Williams received 5 years. In exchange, both agreed to testify against Garcia. In Luxembourg, Garcia's wife was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and his girlfriend was sentenced to 3 years. However, both fled while out on bail and have yet to serve their sentences. On November 15, 1991, Garcia finally faced justice in a U.S. court. One of the most important witnesses was Victor Guerrero, Garcia's close friend and an undercover FBI agent. Guerrero shared, "This was the first time I had to testify against a friend, but it was the right thing to do. As a law enforcement officer, my duty is to tell the truth, whether it's a friend or a foe." On April 16, 1991, Garcia was convicted of trafficking cocaine and heroin along with laundering millions of dollars through European banks. He was fined $1.6 million and sentenced to 80 years in prison. For years, Garcia and his accomplices had used their positions to cover up their drug trafficking operations. One investigator commented, "In the war on drugs, sometimes it feels like we're trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. Some people like Garcia succumb to temptation and fall into a life of crime." Thanks to the close cooperation between the DEA, Interpol, and Luxembourg police, Garcia and his accomplices paid the price for their crimes. They now face years behind bars alongside the very drug dealers they once arrested. This story serves as a wake-up call and an important lesson, not meant to glorify or romanticize criminal behavior. What are your thoughts on this story? Leave your comments below to share with everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.